Folks on the line, we are just getting started. Attendees are having pizza. We'll be up in a few minutes.
We have partnerships with Chinese we can find this out. Right, so I have 3 t-shirts, and then I have 3 more that are darker tints. Right. 2 sweatshirts and 5 shirts. So it's like, so I tend to wear a lot of dark. Yes. And in my house. I am trying to get the sessions. And I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, like the pizza? They go. Yeah. Go pizza, right? All right. Okay, so we'll get started. This is a developer meetup. Some of you may have been to this developer meetup. It's a very relaxed format, so feel free when you want to network, socialize. But I do have an agenda. I do want to run it by some kind of an agenda, to get the best of this meeting. So today, I suggest to introduce myself. So my name is Balaji. Some of you know, and most of you may not know me. That's no big deal. It's okay. We'll get to introduce each other. So my name is Balaji. I am the program director for Blockchain Founder Club. Blockchain Founder Club is a community-focused, blockchain-driven community meetup. So we have close to 6,500 in our club. We welcome you all to join this club. Ask any questions, bring more creative ideas, and how we want to drive this club from a blockchain perspective. Today we have a package. We have we're going to cover 3 main writings. The first one's going to be a blockchain talk by Joe Myers, and then there's going to be a talk about blockchain ecosystem for entrepreneurs in the blockchain world. That's going to be Joe, and then we have the possible time, what he said. Our friend from Nebulous will be teaching you how to code a simple smart contract on the Nebulous platform. So it's going to be a packed agenda, and I hope that getting the original pizza to keep the steam going, the kind of easy stuff, so you can learn and code. That's the whole idea, right? So with that said, I do want to talk about the sponsor for tonight. We have Jing from ABC. So Jing and I will be running a hackathon this coming week. It's going to be blockchain awakens. It's one of those events like I've seen cracking awakens, but now we're awakening the blockchain, right? So it's going to be an exciting event. We want to ask you to be part of this. Please come in, and I will be there, Jim will be there, and a few other folks will be running this hackathon for 2-day hackathon. And I'm going to call send an email to talk a little bit about ABC and the hackathon. But let us know how we can involve this community, Blockchain Developer Club, the contact with and we try to do the next blockchain event if you will. if there's anything that we can do with one, or anything that something might please shoot us an email or put a message on the meetup. That's it. I'm going to call the Jimmy to say a few words, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, what we're happy to our Blockchain with so a little background about the ABC. So what ABC Blockchain community, we were originally a group of two engineers from related to blockchain technology itself, and then we have regular technical discussions and meetups. There we found out we had a lot of like-minded friends that want to join our community, so our community expanded into the Bay Area and like across the US, and then like, we have chapters in like Thailand and other countries as well. So events in our community include, like I said, technical discussions, meetups, and our upcoming hackathon. So our hackathon is this weekend, so August 4th to this. It's a 24-hour hackathon, but we have a lot of activities before and after. The hackathon features three newer platforms, and we also have partnership and sponsors from organizations such as Finance and Stanford Blockchain Club. So and the price pool is going to be 3 Bitcoin. So 1 Bitcoin shared by the top 3 prices, and 2 Bitcoin shared by all teams based on how many votes you got. So the judge is going to have those. Some VCs going to be there and have those, and you can also vote each others. And 2 Bitcoins is shared among the teams based on those. So it's going to be really fun. It's Star Wars themed, so there will be costumes and giveaways, and it's going to be very technical, fun, and exciting. So we hope to see you there. If you want to register, please go to www.blockchain.com and there is thank you.
All right. Thank you. That's a lot of information, and I hope it's so that's it. I do want to make one final announcement before I start the tech talk. And I always keep the good for the last, right? So we have this exciting event coming up in September. It's called Founder World 2018 Blockchain Impact. This is going to be the largest, Bay Area's largest blockchain-focused community-based event. We're expecting about like 3,000 plus attendees to come in person, and also about like 200 startups across the globe nominate as partner with us, bring startups to participate in a championship competition that's going to be part of the Founder World. Now, the Founder World, right? So, and also the other aspect of Founder World 2018 is we have this Global Community Leadership Summit. We're expecting all these communities to come in, nominate startups, and also participate in discussions, debates, and talk about opportunities in their local community as for, pertaining to blockchain. So it's going to be a big event. We would love to all of you be there. The website to go register is Founder World, all in singular, founderworld1word.com. Go register yourself. Tickets are free right now. So I would, highly encourage go register while it lasts. It's going to be like, ticket price you jump to at like 20, 30, 40, and we have $100 tickets. So I want you guys to be there, and I want to give the best out of it, like always. So thank you very much, and I'm going to invite Giovanni to talk about the decentralization of fundraising.
Good day, pleasure. My name is Jamari. I tell people who may remember my name is Jamari, also Jamari. It helps a little bit for some people. Don't call me Jamal. All right. So I'm going to try to take a little bit slower today. They get me a certain amount of time. I'm definitely not going to use all the time. But really, what I was talking about was the decentralization of fundraising. Basically, over this period of blockchain cryptocurrency, we've seen a large amount of investors start to come into space, and really it was like the democratization of fundraising in a lot of ways. And I just want to kind of walk through a little bit what that looks like, a little bit of mentality behind it, some of the legal frameworks that people have been discussing, and things around the area. You can ask questions. I want to be open. This is not as technical in regards to aspect of how it's about really the methodology of how these things are released in some way. Because blockchain is actually expressed in many different ways, the way that's implemented. So you're going to see me kind of discussing a few different implementations that people have had in this space. And this is kind of specifically looking at the United States perspective, because outside the United States, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit less regulated than the United States. So a lot of people you will see investments are diminishing in this space, and they're just kind of focused on, oh yeah, we're going to go to Switzerland, or we're going to go to Puerto Rico, we're going to go somewhere else, and range from everyone else in the world because of the kind of regulatory restrictions in the United States. So this kind of speaks on that. So yeah, Mark Peterson, I'm a digital reserve founder of that company, and I'm also with F50 as an entrepreneur resident. So kind of quick background on me. Last year, I did do an ICO. We raised $4.1 million for a quantum-resistant ledger. That was basically a cryptocurrency that was similar to Bitcoin, except for building quantum-resistant cryptography, post-quantum cryptography using Witness one-time signature and extended virtual signature tree for securing kind of the way that the cryptocurrency signatures were made when transactions occur. It was really more so of a risk or a hedge against the eventual quantum computing that will occur, which we expect in the next 5 to 10, 15 years. But however, there's a lot we're seeing work in that area. So that had a $100 million valuation in the first 3 months. It's not there at this moment, but it was there for a while. Then I exited to work on something that I was a little more passionate about, the digital reserve. So I'm in the midst of a fundraising round in the United States. So a lot of stuff I'm talking about is kind of from the experience that I'm having as I'm raising these funds. I'm a PhD candidate in quantum development and engineering public policy. I'm focused on risk assessment and also at Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C., for my MBA in strategy. And HBCU, by the way, is a historically Black college or our university. So I have to do that. So the U.S. fundraising area. So first I want you to think about how fundraising typically works. You either have the option of going to traditional capital, where you have about 800 venture capital firms in the United States. That was in 2016. Actually, that fallen 20% from 2015 to those accounts. So 15 to 20%. I'm not quite sure what the statistic is at this exact moment, but a lot of the funding, while the number of firms decreased, the actual funding had increased over this time period. So they were investing more in less funds. And then you have angel investors. Angel investors are people that typically have $1 million net worth, or $23,000 per year, or something of that nature, and they actually invest in projects at smaller amounts. So those type of rounds are typically about $500,000. And then you have crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is when you're raising from anybody, anywhere, pretty much no restrictions. If you got money, you believe in the vision, get it to me. Like that's crowdfunding. So yeah, in the United States, you have 300 million people at minimum. And then you're able to raise money from all of them. But those are typically small amounts. People are doing $1, $15, $25, $100. These are smaller amounts. So if you have a larger base where you're taking smaller amounts, and then you have the smaller part on top where you're taking larger amounts. And then so you kind of have this incentive of, are you going to get more money? Or are you going to try to draw more out of those who are at the bottom? Or are you going to try to convince those who are at the top to get more? And that's kind of the pressure that people have in this fundraising area. So the precedent for the crowdfunding that we're kind of seeing in the blockchain fundraising space, kind of a lot of people see it started with Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe. Has anybody in there ever used Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or GoFundMe? You use it? Who's not so familiar with this or what they are? All right, everybody's familiar with these. Good, because Kickstarter, what was really like for a lot of people was what was groundbreaking for them. It was I said, hey, I have a project that I'm passionate about. I have this idea, this thing I want to create. I don't have the capacity to make it, but I believe you might want to buy it as well. So therefore, hey, because you believe in the idea, give me some money and I'll build it. And then because you give me money, I'll let you have the first month I made. Like so, it's a pre-purchase, a pre-sale, a crowd sale type of situation. And then Indiegogo follows a similar format, and then GoFundMe, there's that next step of saying, hey, well, like I don't have a product, but I want you to give me money because I have an issue that I want to give to as a charity, or I'm the charity, or I'm the cause, of give me money, and we'll all feel happier because of it. I'll send you a thank you. I mean, but it was really about this crowdsourcing. It's about reaching out to that larger base we talked about and get a little bit from a lot of people so actually you can meet those needs. And then we have the Jobs Act. And the Jobs Act was actually a really big aspect of kind of what he is facilitating where we are now in the United States, because this actually opened up the doors to actually invest in the equity of companies in kind of a more crowdfunding type of way. Because prior to, you had to be a credit investor, an angel investor, you had to have loads of money to even participate in because basically they said, hey, you're not sophisticated enough to be able to invest inside these particular instruments, inside equity of certain sizes. You need to wait till it's on the open market, till after IPO or something like that has happened. So you can either get at every first round or you're going to get in after something's on Wall Street in the market. Anything in between wasn't really open to people because of the disruption. But the jobs actually opened an on-ramp for people to participate actively inside companies and ideas on an equity basis. And when we talk about equity, that's like the ownership. I mean, I don't know where everybody is, so I want to make sure I explain things. And if you have questions, please get asked, because I want to make sure I clarify these things. So what you have is you have the job track. So it has the different tiers of how you can fundraise money. However, it was still restricted. There was still very clear guidelines because it was trying to still protect people. It didn't want it to be like, hey, I'm going to make $6 billion. You give me $10, I'm going to give you a 400% return. I promise. And then you give me the money and I disappear. It was trying to avoid kind of things that were predatory. So therefore, they put a structure. It's about regulation, but it's supposed to be about protection. Now, sometimes this protection is so enwrapping that it shelters you from even the positive things that can happen. But that's kind of the Jobs Act. And now there's so those two things happen, and then we get to the point where we have these cryptocurrencies where people are building electric economies, electric systems, the ability to decentralize networks that are accomplishing a variety of tasks and purposes. And there's different ways of actually initiating these things and also sustaining them. So the first one was Bitcoin. And Bitcoin operated from the perspective of work, of mining. So that mining was the distribution methodology for how Bitcoin was actually dispersed to everybody else. That was the distribution mechanism. Now we also have, and then we start going to the purchasing aspect of saying, hey, you know what? When I initiate this, like proof of stake, for example, proof of stake is a system of consensus where you're assuming or you're saying that, hey, because people actually are buying in and holding onto a portion of the network, if they have that's a demonstration of their incentive to be honest when they're validating transactions. And if that's incentive, well then therefore they can validate transactions without doing all this extra work. They can actually do it in an economic framework. But then if you're going to have a proof of work system, how do you get it out? Well, if it's proof of stake, if it's proof of stake, how are you going to get out? You're going to get it out by having to sell it to somebody so that you can establish a value to it. So that initial distribution is through purchase. Now, then also under that purchase, you also have an option system where they have bidding. But those all fall under various versions of trying to establish the value to actually create incentive for why people will actually be honest in the validation of the network. And then you start moving into this area of airdrop, where people are just like sending a portion of the network to people, and in a way of trying to build engagement as well as leading into them selling a lot of times. So it's part of the fundraising mechanism, but it is a way of them distributing. There are some projects that just say, hey, like we're trying to be a better Bitcoin, for example. So we're going to airdrop basically these funds to everybody that currently has a Bitcoin, and they're just starting the network from that point. And then it wasn't about actually raising any funds, it's just a method of distributing people who were engaged in the space already. So those were like the three main distribution mechanisms. So like from those you can get actually broad different ways of kind of decentralize your network. Where the work one is more focused on like, hey, if you can put a work in your counties, like if you do actual physical work in person, you tweet about this, I'll give you some coins. That's the distribution method, is like exchanging work for the coins. Or you can say that as a form of purchase as well. So the mining as well. Mining is actually using computational resources to be able to figure out something. But you have to purchase the mining equipment as well, too. So you are spending money in something other ways. You can actually put that to purchasing as well. So anyway, that's what. So these are our distribution methods that you have. So then when you look at the initial coin offering, what we had was you had these distribution methods, but then you also recognize if purchasing is an option, well, this can also be a form of fundraising. So not only is purchasing an option for you to distributing the network, there's also a way to make money. It's a way of actually receiving funds to continue the network. So now it's not even focused on just the distribution of the network. It's now looking at saying, hey, we talked about Kickstarter. Kickstarter was like, hey, if I had an idea, then I can actually get funding to be able to build it and then give it to you. So now I have an idea, and I can make this network, and the network relies on me distributing it, and I also can make money off of it to build it. So therefore, you see how these pieces kind of start connected together. So therefore, you're able to actually reach out to more people and build your network around this vision that you have, distribute it, as well as meeting the need of getting the funds that you need to build the network. So that's now a starting place that we actually have. Now then, in that space, you also now have people that actually, it's not about this distribution method. You now have people who are say, oh no, I'm just trying to fundraise money so I can build something. These tokens or whatever you do don't matter as much. However, it might give you a right to equity. It might give you a right to understand what's going on. I might just tell you about what's happening. And you have this kind of hybrid model sitting somewhere between this Kickstarter model and somewhere between a cryptocurrency kind of distributed model. And you got people lining up at different places on that spectrum. So then we have this initial coin offering mentality. So first one is consumption. Ethereum is kind of, they look at the consumption methodology where they first raise their funds. Hey, Ether is like gas. This gas is meant to run the network. So therefore, that's why you're purchasing it. So that you have gas, so that you can run the decentralized applications on the network. That's it. That's all you're purchasing. This is an instrument of security. It's not supposed to be considering the value or anything like that. The point is to run applications. So that's the consumption. And then they start moving to the utility kind of perspective, which is similar to consumption, saying, hey, you're buying this to be able to do something. You're buying this token so as you can get some storage space on somebody else's computer just to store your information. You're buying this token so as you can notarize a document, because this is going to be used for notarizing documents. And then you have a product. You might say, okay, this thing is representing, you're buying this because we're going to get something else, we're building something, and this will represent that product. And then the last one is really, you're buying this because we're going to build currency. So like the currency value is going to be what it is based on whatever monetary policy and metrics that exists. And that's kind of the mentality that we have now, but this coin offering aspect. But then, and we kind of have to kind of stats, and we see that the ICO from 2016 to 2017, we got up to like $1.33 billion was being raised in November. And then we have the cumulative, which is like you can see a jump here, and then it's growing in the last few months. Like it just continues to have been growing. However, like we'll talk about kind of who's actually participating in that in a minute. But then when you have this kind of amount of money flowing, increased scrutiny starts to happen. Because we have large amounts of money flowing into a space. And really at first it was kind of fine for people. Because like for Ethereum, for example, there was no interim token between the time of the offering and the time that the network was done. So what you was buying, like when you crowdfund something on the Kickstarter, let's say I said I'm going to make a watch. Like, okay, there's nothing in between the time when you give me money and you actually finally making the watch. There's no representation of that. I might say I'll send you updates, but that's all you get. You either get the watch or you get nothing. And there's no value representation between there. But the ERC20 token on Ethereum opened up the opportunity for people to represent these assets that they're on, these products or these services that they're offering prior to even completing the network. So what that does at that point is, and this is why they worry about the security aspect, is because now that allows people to speculate on the value of the thing that people are buying into at that point. So I'm saying, okay, hey, like this is the gas for the network, but the network is not done yet. So therefore, there's no product, but there's a representation of this gas. And the only basis for deciding what that value is what people are just randomly deciding the market forces around this speculative future that may or may not happen. So now people are trading this based upon this idea of the future value. And this becomes like rife for actually the area for people to actually start having potential like extortion, people having issues of actually scams, fraud, and things of that nature, because it's a speculative asset for most people. But the ERC20 token was the catalyst for this. I mean, it was not the intention behind the standard for that to happen, but that was the reality of the expression of how people use it, which you can feel one way or another. But this is what causes the SEC starts to have oversight. And as the SEC started oversight, they started finding projects that were not just offering ERC-20 tokens and things of nature, but they were offering things that they knew they wasn't going to ever do. They was offering like, hey, you give me $50,000, you're going to be the richest man in the world. You're going to be just like Bill Gates. You're going to be rich. Rich, I tell you, rich. Just give me $55,000. And people was going around actually having conversations with small groups. I'm telling you, you're going to be rich. Give me some money. Get this. This is all the money I needed. Thank you. Give me $50,000. You're the first person I talked to. Give me $50,000. You'll be rich. You'll be rich, I tell you. And these are people who are actually creating a sense of, hey, no, I want to this way. They see all this money being raised. No, this is my opportunity. I can be rich. I can be rich. And then nothing happens. So, I mean, so it makes sense that the SEC would say, hey, no, they're lying. You can't say that. That's not quite true. And then like I think that's maybe a website. It was called Howie Coins. And it was basically like demonstrating the exact strategy and techniques people were using to actually cause a sense of what they call FOMO, or fear of missing out. To cause people to make the decision on a snap basis without doing their due diligence to verify the validity of the work. So you have these cracks. So basically, like one of the big things is the countdown. Oh man, you only got 1 hour left, and you only got 1 hour left, and you get a 50% bonus. After this is gone. Like that was an opportunity to have 50% more than you got right now. You need to buy it right now because they'll send you an email, they'll tweet you. Oh no, we got some endorsements too. Like, oh man, you only got an hour. After this is over. You know, if you're on, you want to buy it right now? I'm telling you. I'm just gonna sell you on it. I mean, no, really though. You don't have to. And that's what they're doing. Now it's facilitating this perspective of, hey, the SEC get involved. But then when the SEC gets involved, then that also does something to everybody else. It's like for me, I don't look good in orange. I don't. I'm not going to jail. So therefore, if I feel like I'm not going to jail, I'm saying, okay, the SEC is actually getting a real kind of scrutiny by this area, the budget down people. So even if I'm doing a project that I feel like falls into some particular category, I'm seeing other people are falling into issues. So then what am I going to do? I'm going to change the way that I'm doing my offering. Because like, for example, like when I raised the conference ledger, I rose from everybody in the world. I didn't care who you were. It was like, hey, if you believe in this work, we're building some value. We're raising this capping out. Like we're trying to be reasonable. At least, like I said, we're going to cap it at this amount. And even sometimes the cap for some people is even a strategy as well. But we set a cap. We said that you're going to raise something. We built a network, and anybody else, you either send money to this address, and then when the network is done, we'll actually provide you the product. Now, in between that time, there was some other stuff that I was interested. But basically, the core idea was, hey, we're creating something, you're investing in. Now, at this point, when I'm raising this money, I am not doing it the exact same way. So I'm going to use a new approach. Because So some people use the exclusions of the United States. Like, yo, trick the United States, there's other money at other places. We can raise that money somewhere else. The United States has their own one. There's China, there's Australia, there's UK, there's South Korea. They're loving this stuff. Singapore. We're going somewhere else, period. Like, United States, tripping. We're fine. We don't need their money. And then those who are in the United States will look up and, hey, there's SAP. It's called Simple Agreement for Future Tokens. There's this hybrid structure people are looking at, which is equity with dividends. And then there's lastly the token UK, which is tokens as a debt payment. So what is the SAP? The SAP is more like the equity structures that people are like watch combinator. It's just basically an agreement for giving these future tokens in the future, but with some type of protections and some kind of structure that people have. And then you got this dividend structure. And you can buy equity in my company under some set of rules. And then when you build a network, we'll just cut you off some coins at the end. because that's totally legal. So we can do it that way. And then the last one that we know is called the token DPA, token as net payable asset. And this one, like I said, basically you invest is more of a debt instrument. So basically, like you're buying, I'm saying, okay, you're lending me money. So what's interest rate? Interest rate is such and such. So when the network is done, I'm going to give you, I'm going to pay you in tokens with that interest rate. So those are kind of the structures that people have been looking at right now. But as you know, these are increasing the barriers of entry. The more barriers of entry you create, the smaller people that participate. So you start moving from that big base at the bottom you raise from to increasingly that smaller amount of people who actually just have no money and fit the requirements. So that's kind of where the decentralization of fundraising actually comes in. We're moving into a more restricted place where the offering to everybody is viable. So people are moving up higher and focusing on these smaller amounts of money, which is also kind of working against the decentralization factor. So yeah, my name is Jamar Peterson. That's my Twitter. I'm also on Medium. If you have questions or concerns, let me know. That's all, folks.
Did you guys have any questions? What do you do? Awesome. I'm going to ask you. You know, before I call Joe, we can talk about consensus. There was one gentleman who asked me about Founder World. The Founder World, I talked about, like, a little story about what Founder World is, what we're going to do. And the website is founderworld.com, which just upgraded it. It's one of the sleek-looking, sexy-looking websites with all the features, all the different programs that you can offer at Founder World. The site is founderworld.com. All single, one word. Please go register yourself. No further ado, I'm going to introduce Joe, Consensus. Consensus in Blockchain Developer Meetup. We're working on something, we're trying to help each other. So you can talk about Consensus.
Yeah. Okay, so I can just talk. I've got a MacBook Air, which never works that way. Yeah. All right. It's it's easy. Okay. So, as Balaji mentioned, I've heard Consensus, and we may end up sponsoring these events. So we'll have some more technical folks. I don't need business development Consensus. So we'll be here to talk more about what we look for in terms of entrepreneurs that we invest in. So, I'm curious before I get started, how many people here have ever heard of it? Okay, so more blockchain people here. I'm used to being in places where maybe not everybody knows. So you guys probably know. So Joe Lubin is one of the co-founders of Ethereum, and he's the founder of Consensus. And we consider ourselves an ecosystem developer, and we're specifically focused right now on Ethereum because it's the largest blockchain in the world. And what we mean by ecosystem development is, the talent and the team are still continuing to develop Ethereum. It's an open source project. As it evolves, we need to get more developers building on top of it. It's a big computer, right? So we need more people building applications on top of it, which is why we found entrepreneurs. And then also using it, which is my day job. I can talk to big companies, one could imagine like this, and figure out what they're doing in the blockchain space, get them to adopt blockchain technology internally, as well as take it to their customers. And so today, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically capital at Consensus. So our team, there are 3 vehicles that we fund entrepreneurs now. This one's called Tachyon. It just launched, which is why I wanted to. You can see I have a promising career as a designer. Put this together on the way here. So we just launched this accelerator. It's based out of the Bay Area. And we're looking for entrepreneurs that are interested in building on Ethereum. This particular program, you're going to get mentored. Joe Lubin's going to be out here. You can imagine some of the other high-profile people from the Ethereum development community be here. And this is focused on allowing, early-stage founders to start pitching their ideas. We have 2 other vehicles that are more that have been with us longer. One's called Consensus Labs. It's an accelerator. All of our 55 portfolio companies we have today, which I'll show you some, come out of labs. And we also have Consensus Ventures, the more traditional VC we just launched. And that particular fund is aimed at, maybe more seasoned entrepreneurs that have a couple exits under their belt and looking for more of a traditional venture capital experience. So I highly recommend that if you guys will stay after, if you guys want to join the Tachyon program, we're recruiting actively for it. I'll still give you my card. I'll connect you. So you guys have probably seen a ton of these. Blockchain will disrupt every industry. I happen to be customer facing, if you will, so I'm in the front lines. I've talked to every large IT solution provider in the world. I've talked to oil and gas companies, healthcare companies, financial service companies, consumer packaged good companies, almost everything. At this stage, everybody's trying to put a strategy together around blockchain, I'd say, mostly education and strategy. Some of the more ambitious or progressive companies that move a little faster are in the POC stage or pilot stage. I think this slide is true. It's not just marketing. I've just seen so much and witnessed so much and talked to so many people. I don't think blockchain is going to take over the world. I think there'll be use cases where it's advantageous to use a decentrally governed, immutable, permissionless shared ledger with some smart contract capabilities on top. And there'll be even use cases where we use what are called permission blockchains, which probably some of you are familiar with. So I do think it'll hit all industries. I just don't think it's going to necessarily take over everything within it. There are certain use cases that we can take into. And when it comes to us as a company, we look for 4 things when we're talking to entrepreneurs, and this group seems to be probably well positioned for this, but we're looking for a compelling reason why you want to use a blockchain, not just to raise capital or anything like that, but how are you going to effectively use these decentralized distributed systems to disintermediate a lot of what we see as rent-seeking behavior, oftentimes conducted by intermediaries that provide access rather than value. So you can imagine rights management. These are use cases I see a lot. Custody, escrow, digital identity. These are things where in a decentralized format can add a lot of value to participants. We also look for a really strong tech team, and we're public about that. So it's good to have business leaders, but a lot of where this market is right now from our perspective, we need a lot of technologists who have a strong command of how to build solutions architecture and things like that. So there are a lot of good entrepreneurs out there that may have great ideas, but as an organization, how we structure our strategy, we look for heavy tech teams as well. The last thing that we look for, and this might be a function of the fact that we're financed by Joe Lubin, so we're not your typical VC where we have investors that are grinding us for returns, or we're not revenue driven. We probably have social impact bans us as a company. We're fully decentrally governed, which we'll talk about another time. There's no hierarchy at our company. There are no vice presidents. There are no directors. Everybody works as a loose association of entrepreneurs, technologists, marketers, whatever your skill set is. We have people from nonprofit organizations that work for us. We are accountable and meritocratically driven, but if you're an entrepreneur that joins us, you can work from anywhere in the world. You have complete autonomy over your projects, and we expect you, I guess, kind of ties back into this, that overall, commercially wide blockchain, socially wide blockchain. How's it unlocking new governance models? We've got some pretty interesting people working for the company who are working on complete decentralized governance. So you can imagine programmatic governance of organizations. Nature of the firm and all this more abstract economics and stuff. But our team is very much driven like that. So it's a different organization to work with. You decide. So why consider Ethereum? We're not maximalists about Ethereum. We actually love competition and we want to work with other protocol chains. Joe Lubin, our leader, he emphasizes that a lot because competition is good. We're all working towards the same goal, which is decentralization, at least ideally. And towards that end, we want to work with as many as we can, but we think that, Ethereum, at least today, by the numbers, is the largest blockchain in the world. Most people don't know that. If they're newer to the space, you guys probably do. They think of Bitcoin or whatever because of market cap, or projected market cap. But when you actually look at the number of active nodes, the number of transactions per day, even on a slow day, and we have over 120,000 developers. So it's a pretty good sized community, and we want to keep building it. We like to bring that to developers' attention because you guys have ever read a book called The Cathedral and the Bazaar by Eric Raymond, which I read way before joining Consensus. Quite a few people in the open source movement believe ecosystem is destiny. So it's a great platform to build on, and you can take those skills out of platforms down the road. However, it's not all lollipops and rainbows, and there are some tech and op challenges around the public permissionless chains that are being worked on right now, as you guys probably know about. I won't talk through all these. The big two tent poles that Vitalik talked about last week on a podcast with Tyler Cowan called Marginal Revolution, which I highly recommend you guys listen to, is scale and consumer experience. Scale because you need, obviously, to build applications, you need to have the TPS rates there. We don't want to compromise too much on decentralization, which is why we're looking at layer 2 technologies. You probably know about the triumvirate, right? Scale, security, right? And decentralization, if you choose to. So we're going to try to hold to decentralization as much as we can, because we think it's a core component of what makes the blockchain special, the system special. So we can look at layer 2 technologies, and consensus mechanism changes on the public permission side. So consensus, FFG, and sharding merging together, that. And then you also have plasma, rating, all these other technologies that are going to allow for speed. But one of the things I harp on here, being the business guy and not being technical, is consumer experience. My mother barely knows how to use Facebook. She's not going to go create a wallet. She's not going to go put Ether into the wallet. She doesn't understand how to do transactions. So, and Vitalik points that out, like massive consumer adoption, enterprise adoption may be different because you more sophisticated audience. But consumer adoption, in addition to the scaling issue, I would like to bring up to you, because you guys are all technical mostly, that you guys think about, average people that have a hard time using, something as simple as Facebook or Twitter, these things where there's a lot of data science that goes behind making it easier for people to keep their accounts online and get back in. And I think that's a major operational challenge. So as an entrepreneur, from my personal perspective, not consensus, but speaking for myself, if anybody solves that problem, they're going to make a lot of money. There are chains that claim to solve it, but would argue that there's this trade-offs that are always there. So solving it elegantly, not just a marketing goal, but elegantly solving that problem is going to be a really hard one. And so the reason why some entrepreneurs talk to us is, when I joined, we had 470 employees 6 months ago. We're over 1,000 now. I think we're at 1,080. We're going to be at 2,000 in like 9 months or 6 months or whatever it is. So we have a large team: business development, marketing, finance, PhD theoretical physicists, a lot of people. So if you're an entrepreneur, it's fun to work for us because of the fact that you get all that support. And we're decentrally governed, so if that appeals to you, it might be another reason. So I wanted to run through a couple of these and then open it up for Q&A. But we're trying to build a full stack, right? So if you're thinking of Ethereum protocol layer, we've got a team called Pegasus that's building a permission Ethereum offering. You can get Quorum from JP Morgan. There's others. We're building our own. We've got Infura, which is infrastructure as a service, API based, so it's 3.5 billion transactions which I think is on par with Google Cloud. We have NVIDIA down the street here in Sunnyvale. And then we have dev tools like Truffle, you guys might be familiar with. We've got analytics tools like Alethio. These are all portfolio companies. MetaMask, portfolio companies, Popular Wallet, Uport, identity management. And then up the stack, right? Applications, so software as a service, UJO, so decentralized ITAMs. Binance, a supply chain. Gnosis is a prediction market. You get the point. We're looking for entrepreneurs that are solving problems. And this is all on our website, if you guys want to check out the portfolio. Last thing I want to mention to you guys, less on this other stuff, because I talk to corporations and stuff, and we do training for them and governments, but there's going to be online self-paced modules that I really want to advocate because they're low cost. And I got into the blockchain space as an enthusiast. I was in Bitcoin and back with Ethereum, and I think it's a community-driven project. And so I'm really excited about this one here. You can imagine like Coursera and stuff like that. You can get Ethereum, you can get certified as an Ethereum developer, and I think that's going to be really important. And then non-technical people like myself can go get like blockchain platform certified. So we at least understand the differences between like different platforms that you use in context. So I want to mention that to keep an eye out for. One last thing on capital, we have Token Foundry. So if you guys come with us, we do not invest in tokens or SaaS or equity finance space. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty around tokens, as Art pointed out. We do have a firm called Token Foundry Service for our portfolio companies to take them through an ICO. But we recommend ICOs as a marketing tool. Again, strong core tech team, not afraid of equity financing, doesn't mind diluting their cap table because they think the value added services are bringing to the table are worth it. And then down the road, if you guys want to scale the platform, you can go out and Token Foundry and take it from that. So that's one last thing. I'll leave on this consortium piece, but we do back nonprofits, we do back meetup communities. These are for the spun out of Consensus, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which sets specs for permission blockchains, Ethereum flavor. We have blockchain for social impact, which again, back to my social impact slide, is a huge area of interest for Joe and for our team more broadly. So if you guys have projects that are focused on helping disadvantaged communities or something like that, it's going to be especially appealing to us, unlocking capital, banking, whatever, for those communities. And then Decentralized Identity Foundation, the last one we'll talk about, which I think is the tail wagging the dog in a lot of these disintermediating vectors around social networks. If we can get a single decentralized identity kind of mechanism in place, then you could imagine centralized Facebook and a lot of these solution providers that are access. They're monetizing your data, essentially making a lot of money doing it. So I think, do I have like 5 minutes left?
You have 5 minutes.
Do you mind? I'd like to open, I usually better question and answer. If you guys have any questions, I'll be back here in 15 minutes.
What's a typical equity structure for a startup that might get backed by Consensus?
Yeah, so it depends on which way you come in. So the Backdown Accelerator and the Consensus Labs will be different because those entrepreneurs tend to be frankly fresh out of school. The interest in the space, as you guys probably know, at least in my experience, is overwhelmingly generational. It's actually quite interesting to watch. Then Consensus Ventures, which we just started, as I mentioned, is looking at more traditional venture capital motion, experienced entrepreneurs. And in both cases, they're negotiable based on how far the project is. Some teams come to us and they already have product running on testnet, and they're just looking for us because they want a brand, they want our expertise because of some of the people on our team. And so that's just a conversation. It's not like Y Combinator or something where it's like a set number.
Are the engineers at Consensus available to team if they want to join the project?
Yeah, we encourage it. I was telling somebody else. Yeah, we call it spoking out. So all of our portfolio companies are called spokes and we're called the hub. And we encourage people that join our team if they're part of the hub. I'm part of the main mothership, but you can spoke out. So if 4 people get together, one's a marketer, one's a technologist, they find product market fit, we encourage you and we'll fund you, or you can go out. And if you fail, you get to come back in. So it's kind of like training wheels, right? If you fail, you can come back in. You have entrepreneurs that have gone out, tried something, come back, gone out, tried something, come back third time, hit it. Now they're scaling. So that's what's kind of cool about working for us too. It's a little different than traditional VC. Oh, okay.
If there are projects which we are working on, where you probably need some advice or doing collaboration with Consensus, is there a model, engagement model that we can work with people out here, making a big deal about it?
Yeah. So I'm part of Consensus Solutions. There's Academy that's training in the hub. There's Academy that's training capital, that's the labs and ventures, and then I'm Solutions. We all do everything, but that's my day job. So we have advisory, strategy, solution design, delivery. Think of this like a mini Accenture, and we can go work with clients. The reason we have to do that is the space is so young. And if you're already working with Accenture, you could imagine we're starting partnerships with them. We want to just enable. whoever you're working with. We just want Ethereum to grow.
How are you guys going to solve privacy on a blockchain? So, like, let's say you make a DApp for voting. You don't want people to be able to see who individually cast a vote. How is that going to be kind of obscure? Or there are solutions being built?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's probably like, I say consumer experience and scale of the top two. I'd say lowercase, a close 3 is privacy. So there's a project called the Enigma project. There's quite a few projects that are looking at how can you, in a public permissionless blockchain context, how can you essentially do private transactions or have private interactions, but at the same time immutability. So I would say you should go look at those projects in particular. The cool thing about Ethereum is we're not part of Ethereum, we're just an ecosystem developer. It's open source. So if you guys have a good idea, you can go try to build an app, or you can build some sort of protocol, EIP, you can put forward or submit an EIP on anything, or create your own project like Enigma's doing. MIT, guys, it's a really strong team. You should check it out.
What is not clear from your presentation, in my view, is I'm not sure what kind of business model you guys are championing or supporting. Because what you're saying that you want businesses that create value instead of like having this like rent-seeking behavior. But what I'm not sure is if I'm not an entrepreneur, my economic incentive is not just to create a value. I also want to create profit for myself or for my team. So what is? So I'm still don't understand how you
join the club.
Mission.
Right, so let me give you a quick answer. So business models are being developed. Software as a service, subscription-based models are a lot of what I'm seeing in the enterprise context. So imagine if you built a supply chain solution, you'd have a decentralized solution. You may have a utility token that's used to operate it. You may not. And then in terms of how you bill your customers, it would be any other software as a service business where you bill on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, or annual basis. But there are other new and more innovative business models that are being experimented.
And they're not rent-seeking.
They're not rent-seeking in the sense that the context for like decentralized Ubers and Facebooks are different. But if you're a service provider and it's very clear that you're delivering a service and you're billing for it, that's not necessarily rent-seeking if I have choices. But if I go to Facebook and I use something for free and people are monetizing my data, in theory with a decentralized identity, I could go back to use Facebook and say, hey, Facebook, I'm generating $50 a month for you. I think I want 25 of it back because I can quantify what kind of value I'm driving. Right now, it's a black box. You go use the content, you publish content, add value to their network, and you have no idea that how much value you're generating on that. But in a software as a service model, which was the context I was addressing, which is my background, you're delivering a service and you're charging a subscription fee, just like any other service. Do I got to go? Okay. Well, I'll be here, so if you guys want to just chat.
Thank you very much. We want to run events. So we get to listen to Jamari on the content is somewhat like so regulatory SEC to the comments to listen to it, and then we have an ecosystem. Now the next best thing is to start coding, right? Already for coding. So I think before I part ways and then we got the recording. A couple things I want to talk about, right? Blockchain covers our Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and Silicon Valley developer network. We do a lot of demo nights. We do developer meetups, entrepreneur business. With all the people like we want to bring the community. We exist because of the community, and community gets helped by all these events. So please keep track of all this, like the events that we schedule. There's one event that's coming up next week, and this is a demo night where entrepreneurs come in on the stage and demonstrate their product. Be a white paper, be a pitch deck, so we will be inviting you all to come to this event. This is going to be in San Francisco. And then on August 9th, we have another demo night coming up, and that's going to be in Silicon Valley. So we're going to alternate demo nights, San Francisco and Silicon Valley, so we can get most of you covered and we run this event. And then also like for this weekend, we have a hackathon. So the whole idea is to educate you, and then show you the ecosystem, and then have you participate in hackathons, and then also a coding session so you have all the tools in your pocket, if you will, kind of exploring this blockchain opportunity. Hope this helps. So now we're going to part ways, and here's what we're going to do. At this point, we're going to have a 1 hour long working session. For those who are interested in participating in the working session, you may choose to stay here with Jackie and Ken from Nebulous will be showing you the basics so you can start coding. And the rest of the folks, feel free, just break out, socialize, and stick around. And if you have any questions, Jamari is in the back. And we have Joe somewhere here. So please feel free to ask your questions. Do let us know, Blockchain Founder Club can help you in any way. Thank you all.
And if you're also interested in the tax line,
Hey guys, for those who want to participate in the working session, please come to the front. So it'll be easy to communicate, ask questions. Thank you.
Wait 1 second, let me move. Never mind.
Okay, awesome. So I guess we're going to start now. So I'm Jackie, and that's Ed. we're both here representing TS Blockchain. Also, we're representing our friends. And basically, that this is also like a ecosystem that has consensus. And today we're going to be trying to create one consensus. So specifically, today we're going to do. Okay. Can you hear me now? Awesome. So today we're going to teach you how to build a smart contract using JavaScript on Netflix. So let's start. So first step, go to github.com/netflix.io. From there, we're gonna go into the web wallet. From web wallet, what you go do is you first clone, download the zip file. So now into a place where you're gonna do all your work in. Open the zip file. Yeah, sure. I will go slower. Okay, so go to github.com/netlist.io. From there, go to web wallet. Web wallet, open it. And from web wallet, you go to clone or download and save it to wherever you want to do your work at. And open the zip file that you clone. Once you have the zip file open, you see a folder that has all these files, right? Is that one of that? Good. From there, click index.html. So this will open the site where it allows you to go to testnet. Only create all. Are we all good there? So from here, create your password, because this is going to be the password you use to encrypt your key. So let's just get the password and click create a new wallet. And then from there, download your key store file. So github.com/netlist.io. And then you should be seeing a web wallet. To this page. So when you download the zip, so if you go back to this, you see clone or download. From there, you clone it, you download the zip file, and then find it, and then open the zip file, and then you should see index.html. Tell me if I'm going too fast anyway. I can slow down. And then from there, create a password. That'll be your encryption key. Create a new wallet. And then save your key store file. So we should be up to the part where you unlock the wallet. Now we go to testnet. So the domain you go for testnet is testnet.netlist.io/claim. So you should be able to see this page. So testnet.netlist.io/claim. Once you're there, you just put whatever email you want to put it as.
Don't you have to remove the .json?
Yeah, just use the.
Yeah. And then we are. Okay, so that's that. Is everyone on the same page? Good. Yes. So now that you have it, wallet created, we're going to go into send checking the store to see to send mass into the customer.
Is yours mainnet live?
Yes. It's been since. So you always check your wallet here. So if you go underneath your wallet, you can the store key again, you can see every house. So now we go back to this page where you create your wallet. You always check your TM status. Or you set as send. So we can go to send next much. So you select your wallet file. You choose JSON file. You type your password. Come on. Well, once you press allow, then you can send your, then you can put in your pass. Then you have all these criteria, so address, balance, to address, values, tax limit, tax price. This is where to send the transactions between the.
Receive transaction information.
No, you have to no, you understand. So you send the okay.
So for the rest of this presentation, it'll be written on the test that, but you can actually write
currency fees like an actual token or an as token just to submit smart contract. Like won't be a full token like $3. They'll just give you a little additional fee for it.
Okay.
So same thing here, you can ask wallet and then they send you
Okay. And then
right. Okay. Okay, let's go to, so what I recommend is either the token has been set, and the process has been running really slow today. So for the rest of this is just for testing tokens. For the rest of the, instead when I touch my contract development, instead of using your test alternate, I'll be using mainnet for you. Go to this website, here's the HTTPS faucet.official. And then this will send you like the actual token. And then it's worth it. The same wallet? No. So this is actually, oh yeah, it's your same wallet, but it's considered a mainnet token. So the beauty of the Nebulous wallet, since it's its own off-chain, is that you get mainnet tokens, testnet tokens, and local tokens, and all sorts of things. So .ru, so you want to use .ru, HTTPS.com. Yeah. Nebulous, N-E-B-U-L-A-S. Perfect, right? Yeah. So this is just a faucet, and then you get a very minimal, but that's enough to pass the running mark. So your wallet. So Nebulous is its own. It has mainnet tokens. Yeah. They have the testnet tokens. Blockchain, which is what you're receiving right now. And then they have local net tokens, which is what you're running. So testnet's perfect for writing a smart contract in your app before you want to test it like live. So this replicates everything. Testnet replicates everything on the mainnet without actually spending real money to use it. Because every time you run a smart contract, you're spending money, you're spending gas. So testnet lets you do it. Actually, this is
you guys good? Just waiting on some other people.
So make sure to go t-shirts. Just good. You can just keep going.
Okay.
So this is actually a different one. So it's good, yeah.
Okay, so now go back to the page where you created your wallet, and you should see the tab that says send NAS. Everyone go to send NAS. And go to where you save your file for your JSON file. So that your JSON file put your password. Then click on. Once everyone gets to that stage, maybe don't.
I probably won't run. Yeah, and this will follow actually the majority of the steps.
Are we stuck in the
Yes. So this is the same, more or less the same, minor changes. It's the same.
So, did everyone get to this part? Yeah, right now, yes, yes, correct. You got to that part. Yeah. Do you understand?
So the non-field shows how many transactions based on the same address. So you want to leave that what it is currently. It'll update automatically every time. No.
It will just give an error saying that. No. Anyone have any other questions?
We send it to ourselves?
Yes. So right now, send to yourself any number that's less than 1. And then you quick generate transactions, and you should get something like this. Is there one pretty good around this area? You guys good? Yeah, gas price is a random number for now. And then you should click send transaction and just submit it. And then from there, you should create a hash. Is anyone stuck here? We're good? Both sides? Okay. So from here, we could check your TF info. That's where you put.
So what you do?
So you saw the transaction number before, right? Over. So this number. So when you send transaction, there should be a number right under. Copy this number. Try sending again. Then you should send it. Just do it once. Yeah. And then from there, you could check the TF status. I just copy that number and put it in. And then you show that you send a transaction from your wallet from one to another. Yeah, that was it. But this is But now then we'll go more in depth on actual creating the Hello World and smart contract.
Okay, so right now we're going to cover more into creating an actual smart contract on the Nebulous blockchain. So right now, this is the contract we're going to create. It's going to just be, a simple, Hello World smart contract. For those like me that really don't like typing stuff and just like copying stuff from Stack Overflow, I have the GitHub repository on the top right, github.com nebulous learning, which actually has this whole file in there. It is a JavaScript.
Yeah, we'll get to the code. You make it. We try to make it bigger.
So the file will be the smart contract hello commented JS file at the bottom. And then I'll have the entire smart contract there that we'll be using. So it might be easier just to copy this text into your editor So you can just look at it from there instead of just coding it from scratch. It is in the nebulous-learning repository. And it'll be the last file, smart contract hello world commented.js. So this is Node.js. You can also use TypeScript if you're familiar with it as well. Okay, as you can see here, for the smart contract, each smart contract has its own respective class. And then you have your constructor for any specific object that you're going to be using within your smart contract. Each smart contract itself has an init function. This is essential for your Nebulous smart contract. This will be deployed when you deploy your smart contract itself. Below init, we also have greetings and who, which are two separate functions that we're including in the smart contract as well, which we'll be able to access on the blockchain later down the road once we deploy. So once we have that code, let's get to how to actually deploy a contract. So on your Nebulous wallet, you should be able to see a deploy tab. So you want to go to contract and then deploy. And since we're deploying on the testnet, make sure that on the upper right-hand corner, you select testnet as well. Because the majority of the tokens that you guys received are testnet tokens. So it won't work on the mainnet. The difference between mainnet and testnet tokens. So since Nebulous has its own blockchain, it has its own tokens that aren't ERC20 based anymore. So the mainnet tokens are what you see familiarly traded on Binance, different wallets. That actually has its $3 current monetary value. That's if you deploy live on the blockchain and requires gas to use the smart contract, etc. The testnet itself is the exact same thing as the mainnet, but it's not necessarily live. So you can deploy your contracts on there before you send it live. You can use testnet tokens that don't cost anything. They're completely free from the faucet. So it's pretty much your sandbox for you to deploy before you actually send it to the mainnet. And then you have a local net below that, which is if you only want to develop exclusively on your own platform. So at this part, you want to copy the contract itself. So the code that you just looked at from the JavaScript file directly here. So I just copy this. Here you also select which specific language you're using. For here we're using JavaScript. And then right here is the specific arguments that you choose when you decide to deploy your smart contract. As I mentioned earlier, each smart contract has an init function, like an initial function, which is right here. That's the initial function. It doesn't necessarily have to pass an argument every time. But for here, we're passing the argument visitor, which will be defined in the visitor object, which was created in the first constructor. So for here, we'll just put Nebulous. You can put your name as well. I forgot. Also, I forgot to mention this, but within the arguments, all arguments are passed as JSON objects. So make sure that it is formatted as such. And then after this, select your specific wallet. Jackie, you remember your password? Yes.
And when you deploy a smart contract, you want to send it to yourself. So from address to address would be the same wallet. The value, it could be should be 0 here since you're actually not sending any NAS, but you're deploying. Gas limit, gas price, you can just leave it as is. Yes. If it doesn't send initially, you might want to increase the gas limit and also make sure you're also on the testnet as well. So after this, you can select test, and that will actually run and see if your contract was correctly passes like the test that we've developed. This just make sure there's no errors and such, and we'll also like execute the contract itself. After this, you can click submit once it passes the test. And then you will receive a text hash for the transaction on the local net, on the testnet blockchain. So here you have the transaction hash, and then you also have the contract address. So, anytime that a smart contract wants to be accessed on the blockchain, you send arguments as well as gas to this specific contract. So this is the unique address for your smart contract. So after we do that, we can go back to the check transaction status and put in the transaction hash that we received from submitting the smart contract. And then from here, within probably 15 seconds or so, it should say success. And if it doesn't pass here, you have to go back and do the testing again and make sure that the JavaScript is correct, which it should be from the repository. Yeah, arguments. For now, you can put anything you want. In the context of the hello world, let's say hello world, like in an argument that we put in. So you can put your name, anything, as long as you make sure to put it as a JSON argument, though. So after that, we have after we all deployed our contract, you can actually go in the contract part of the wallet and search any contract that's been deployed on the blockchain. All you have to do is submit the unique address, the unique contract address that we got earlier, and then you'll actually be able to see the full contract as it was posted. So this is how you can search through the blockchain and see anybody's contracts that have been posted there. So for the next step, we're going to be calling different functions from the blockchain, from the specific smart contract that we put up. So to call the contract, we can go to the call tab within the wallet. And then we enter in the specific function that we want to call from that smart contract. For this purpose, we'll be using greetings. And then we can enter any specific argument that we want. For the sake of here, we're going to just enter a city name, such as San Francisco, Redwood City. And then after that, we scroll down, we send it. Make sure that you're sending NAS to the smart contract address, not yourself now. Sorry.
Smart contract address.
Yeah, that's going to be the to address. Because now, since we're sending it to the smart contract itself, instead of ourselves now. Ourselves are just to deploy the smart contract onto the blockchain. And then you can test the result. It should say, here is San Francisco, or here is whatever city you inputted, hello world, and then by, and then whatever your init function argument was.
address, it says it should be 35. But smart contract addresses is longer.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the transaction hash is very long.
There should be underneath the on the transaction hash, there should have been a contract address that you received when you deploy. So if you look up right here, after you put submit, there's for number 3, that's the your transaction hash, and underneath
it's
that.
Already gone.
Oh, you can just deploy again. It's the test net, so you can deploy as many times as you would like. Similar to how we call the greetings function, we can do the same to call the who function. For the who function, if you look within the code itself, there is no arguments inputted. Instead, it returns the visitor from the object that we created within the smart contract, which is the original init argument we assigned when we deployed. So this kind of just demonstrates when you call a function that has empty arguments in your smart contract. To receive it, you just put no arguments. When you call it from the smart contract, it'll return the specific result that's held there. So this kind of just demonstrates, the holding of specific variable information within the smart contract. Instead of using just specifically the wallet and the HTML file that we provided to call things, we can also call smart contracts on Nebulous blockchain through RPC interactions. From here, we mainly do curl, get and post calls. The arguments and everything is the exact same as what we have done just earlier. Let's see this. So from here, as we can do we can curl our specific smart contract and use the appropriate hash. We still get the smart contract that we posted on the blockchain earlier. And again, everything done on the RPC is also through JSON as well. The RPC is useful if you're trying to work with your own APIs, develop your own APIs, or develop your own DApps that aren't particularly involved. Yeah, that should be. Yeah, so it's this is just all different RPC interactions. This PowerPoint itself is available on the repository for the Nebulous Learning repository earlier. You can download the PDF and you can actually walk through the steps again. I recommend going through the RPC if you're familiar if you decide to build your own API for the Nebulous blockchain. That's it. If you have any questions, you can talk to me afterwards, and I can help you out with that.
Can you give examples of some useful scenarios that you can achieve this smart contract on this network?
On this network, the Nebulous network itself can handle smart contracts that are similar to being used on Ethereum or such. I think the beauty of using it specifically on Nebulous is that the Nebulous blockchain doesn't have to be forked. It constantly evolves as it moves on. Otherwise, for specific development, it just depends on if you see Nebulous itself, the pros and cons of it versus EOS versus Ethereum, if you want to use the scaling factor, the speeds, whatever suits the specific DApp that you're building. Otherwise, building the smart contract is the same on any system.
Also, on Nebulous, you can help on much easier if you're already a developer, as well as transaction speed is over 2,000 TPS right now. So faster than first. So that would be really helpful if you do enterprise apps in the system.
What if I can do much code in this contract? Does it limit some kind of computational resources for the contract?
I don't believe it does actually. It usually handles it pretty solidly.
What if I put infinite loop?
If infinite loop, the error, the compiler that's run from the Nebulous VM will catch that, and it won't let you post something. it'll just post an error for infinite loop, and then
I can come up with.
right, you can I mean you can obviously like keep coming up and try to break it. That'll be up to the like more the nebulous tech team to go handle if that occurs.
They also use Devlin, which is so if you guys have any questions, just feel free to contact me by Jackie at the end. Blockchain.ventures. So hopefully that the developer help you do your apps.
Good to see you, brother. How are you? Good to see you, man.
No, we're not. We're actually friends up in the
Sure.
Yep.
So they coded their own.
Okay.
So that that will much faster. And it's also a much faster.
Yeah, Nebulous works really well. I mean, not the only building.
Yeah.
Nebulous I thought was very good.
I work for
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, you're here. No, not. No. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
Step out. Oh, yeah, hope I went up.
I think it's because you didn't have enough gas or just too much people adjusting the numbers because you didn't price all the gas. It probably has the error like if you buy 21 now. I think you just should try. You get the transaction. If you could, I could go explore it. Yeah, I thought
can I request everybody to screen up a little bit just because don't use the bottles and the plates. Excuse me, can I request everybody to just not use the plates and the bottles on their seats?
Last time at day 15.
Oh, I don't work for Nebulous. No, Nebulous is a really good friend of ours, so we just so I do ZS Blockchain. Yes, I do. So awesome. Yeah, because I work mostly with the Cisco team. Or like yeah, we mostly do something. We also allow oh wow. Oh, it's different kind of people. Yeah.
Hi guys.